Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Video created by Grant Harding. Analysis of major characters. Lenny. Lenny is a static character and undergoes no change throughout the story. Lenny is a loyal friend to George. He is not very intelligent, although he is extremely strong. Lenny also likes to pet soft things as well. He has sort of an obsession with it. George. George is a dynamic character. He has a short temper, but is a good friend to Lenny. In the past, he wasn't always a good friend, but learned a moral lesson after he changed to not pick on the weak. Candy. The old handyman who only has one hand. He also has an old nasty dog that smells and nobody likes it and eventually gets shot by one of his best friends. Curly's wife. A troublemaking tramp, as they call her. They make it look like she causes all of their problems and everyone just kind of shuns her. Crooks. He's the black stable hand who has a lot of energy and is quite smart. Curly. Curly is the boss's son who pretty much just causes trouble for everyone. He's a little guy, but he's a lightweight champion. He doesn't like big guys with him being so little, and he's always trying to pick fights with the bigger guys and try to whoop them. Themes. Barriers. Examples of barriers are color of skin and gender. An example of color of skin is Crooks, and because he's black, he's not allowed in the bunkhouse, and everyone just kind of ignores him. An example of gender is with Curly's wife, and everyone kind of shuns her just because she's a woman. Loneliness. An example of loneliness is Curly's wife and Candy and his dog. An example of loneliness with Curly's wife is that she's always trying to talk to people because her husband doesn't really bother with her too much, and she just gets lonely and tries to talk to people. And an example of loneliness with Candy and his dog is that he kind of feels useless, and so he kind of feels like no one wants him around, and so he feels like, there's no one there for him, except for his old dog, but eventually his dog gets shot by his so-called friends, and so he has no one left. Dreams. An example of dreams is George and Lenny wanting to get their own ranch, and eventually Candy hops in on the idea with them, but it doesn't fall through. Hope. An example of hope is Candy wanting to go with George and Lenny because he feels useless, and it feels like eventually he's going to get fired because he can't do anything. And another example of hope is George and Lenny just hoping that they can get the ranch. Powerlessness. An example of powerlessness is Lenny following George around blindly. Another example of this is Curly's wife being stuck at the ranch with nothing to do and can't fix her situation. Plot. George the Brain and Lenny the Brawn are best friends going to work on a ranch in California. They dream of owning their own ranch someday and are working till they have enough money. Unfortunately, they can't hold the job for too long because of Lenny's lack of intelligence, which gets them in trouble. George and Lenny get a job at a ranch near Soledad, California. They meet the workers there named Candy, Slim, Crooks, Carlson, and Curly and his wife, among other people. We are shown Curly's anger issues and Lenny's strength, where Curly picks a fight with him over his wife, and Lenny, because of defending himself, he ends up crushing Curly's hand with his iron grip. Later on, most of the workers go to a warehouse in town. Slime, Crooks, Candy, and Lenny stay behind, though, and they start talking about their dreams, and a little bit they talk about wanting their own ranch, and Crooks kind of teases Lenny about George leaving out on him, and it's only when Lenny threatens him with physical violence does he stop. The next day, Lenny accidentally kills a puppy while petting it because it bit it and he smacked it softly, but it was hard enough to kill it. Curly's wife comes to talk to him and lets him feel her hair. When she scolds him for messing it up, he panics, and because of his enormous strength, breaks her neck. He held onto her hair, and while she was struggling, he broke her neck. Lenny runs off in fear. Her body is then found, and everyone goes after him. George finds him in the brush by the river, where he is told to go, and while talking about their dreams, George shoots Lenny in the head. Everyone else shows up, and George tells them a story about while struggling to take the gun away from Lenny that he was accidentally shot and killed. It is then depicted of George being upset and no one understanding why other than Slim, and the story ends there.